I'm Aldo Giannini,
How about a wish?
and I'm 90 years old today. I really didn't know where Pearl Harbor was, and neither did my friends. I signed up for the Marine Corps in 1943, and soon after was shipped to the San Diego Marine Corps base for boot training. In New Zealand, we continued our training. We boarded ship in Wellington. Everybody was speculating on various landings that we were going to make, and as it turned out, everybody was wrong. The landing on Tarawa was scheduled for November 20th. At that period of time, the tides were extreme. There had been a controversy from the very beginning about the amphibious tractors and the Higgins boats. The Higgins boats required at least 3.5 feet of water under them when they're loaded in order for them to get to the beach, whereas the amphibious tractors were intended to put us right on the beach. This was a very, very serious point, as we found out. So we headed in to make the landing at about 9 o'clock, and by that time, everybody was seasick. Fortunately, I was in the first wave. All we could do when we got on the beach is hunker down behind a retaining wall. And looking back, I was thinking, this is an absolute massacre. Our men were falling over like they were bowling pins. I had the feeling at that time that I wasn't going to make it off of this island. We jumped over the retaining wall and started heading inland. I think we got perhaps about 100 yards where the resistance from the Japanese became almost unbearable. I got into a shell hole along with another guy for cover. The Japanese spotted us, and they dropped about 3 mortars in that shell hole. The concussion from the mortar was so strong that it flipped me over. I had been hit with quite a bit of shrapnel. We got the word, and this is voice communication, there was no other communications there, that we were to return to the beach. And we ran for the beach, and we were followed by a trail of machine gun bullets following us all the way. We finally dropped to the ground and stayed on the ground for a little while, and then got up and started running again for the beach. We finally made it behind the seawall where I could get some medical attention and get some cover. It became nightfall, and we were anticipating a counterattack, and the counterattack never happened, fortunately, because if it had happened, they would have driven us into the ocean for sure. There are so many dead casualties that had floated into shore when the tide came in, and there wasn't enough room to put them on dry land because we had so little of the beachhead. They were practically touching our feet. They had to float out there until the next day when the tide went out again. The country was upset and appalled at the amount of casualties, which were 3,250. Of that number, 1,000 were killed for such a small piece of real estate. Okinawa was a pretty tough island. There were numerous counterattacks that they made, We relieved the 1st Division on the lines, and of course we encountered some resistance. The word came down that they believed the Japanese were going to make their final suicide attack. All through the night, our mortar platoon was shooting up flares to illuminate the area, and we could see the line of Japanese that were 40, 50 yards away from us. It was about dawn that the attack occurred, and you had this huge group coming at us. We opened fire with machine guns and 37 millimeter cannons. It probably lasted maybe 5 minutes, if that long. It was over very quickly, and we annihilated them very quickly. It was right at the side of this shell hole and behind the machine gun. And all of a sudden, an individual popped up like a pop-up figure in a book. He had both hands on his sword, ready to come down on me, and I shot him. And fortunately, and the whole operation was over just about at that time that happened. They pulled us off the line almost immediately. They knew that we'd been through quite an ordeal. And we moved back to a grassy area where they had guards posted around us. And they just told us, just lay down on the grass and go to sleep. None of us knew what an atom bomb was, and some of us even thought it was a hoax. We were ordered to go to Nagasaki as occupation troops. There was total destruction, absolutely total. And instead of trying to establish a camp in Nagasaki, they decided to move us to a town that was about 30 miles away. We got to Kumamoto, and we'd taken over a Japanese officers' training school. First couple of weeks, we were wary of the Japanese, and they were wary of us. Our relationship over time grew closer. They were friendlier to us. We were friendly to them. There was no harsh treatment. I would go into town and get my hair cut by a woman barber. The first time that I did that, why, when she got the razor out to shave my neck and that sort of thing, I wasn't too sure that it was a good idea. But it turned out she was very, very nice. At that point, I had 2.5 years overseas. Anybody that had more than 2 years overseas was designated to go home. The word had gotten out that a large group was leaving. And I believe the whole town turned out at the train station to see us off. The civilians were running back and forth on the train platform, calling guys names and trying to find them. And when they did find them, the civilian would have put his hand on the glass on the outside of the window, and the guy that they were looking for would put his hand on the inside of the window, saying farewell, which was a touching scene, I thought. It was almost to the same date that I had enlisted, so I had really exactly 3 years in with the Marine Corps. And I got home. I had my uniform on, and I think my folks saw me in uniform for about 1 hour. I took it off and put on civilian clothes, and that was the end of that. my son was coming home from Vietnam, we called the Red Cross. He told us the best advice I could give you is for him not to come home in uniform.